Hey Lifers, Dustin here, and today I want to take a look at the top 10 teams that I found most surprising in a good way, most overachieving teams of the 2017 season. Now, I already made a video a couple days ago on the most disappointing teams, and you can check that out in the card that just popped up right there in the corner of the screen. It'll also be in the end card at the end of the, episode, at the end of this video, and linked down in the description and comment box, so you can go down there and check that out. And remember that this is not the best teams of 2017. This is the teams that I think overachieved, that were the most surprising in a pleasant way to everybody around the country, that went above and beyond what most people thought they probably would at the beginning of the season. So we're kind of comparing preseason expectations to postseason outcomes. Number 10, the San Diego State Aztecs. In 2016, San Diego State won the Mountain West Conference and defeated Houston. In 2016, San Diego State capped off a Mountain West championship season with defeating Houston in the Las Vegas Bowl, but obviously that was because of outgoing senior running back Donnell Pumphrey, who ended that game against Houston as the FBS's all-time leading rusher. Right? In steps senior running back Rashad Penny in 2017, and all he did was rush for over 2,200 yards to lead the nation and have 28 total touchdowns in rushing, receiving, and returning. San Diego State started the season 6-0, including wins over Pac-12 teams Arizona State and at home against number 19 Stanford, before falling to Fresno State and Boise State, the two teams who won their divisions in the Mountain West this year. They won the last 4 games of the season before falling to 10-win Army, who got their 10th win against San Diego State, in the Armed Forces Bowl in a game that was pretty weird, actually. With the loss of Donnell Pumphrey at the end of last season, I doubt a whole lot of people expected them to not only be ranked, but to defeat teams like Stanford, and to be a real force on the national scale, and have a running back who was in the running for the Doak Walker, and even got some Heisman buzz. With the loss of Penny after this year, it's time for the next great Aztec running back. Could that be Juwan Washington next year? Number 9, North Texas Mean Green. In 2015, UNT went 1-11, including a 66-7 loss to FCS team Portland State. I'll repeat, 66-7 to an FCS school. After hiring the offensively minded Seth Luttrell to his very first ever head coaching position, he led the Mean Green to a very odd-looking 5-8 season in 2016. But obviously North Texas was going to go right back to obscurity. Except they didn't. They finished 9-5 in 2017, with 2 losses coming to FAU and Lane Kiffin's Owls, which ended the season as one of the hottest teams in the nation, and the one regular season loss to FAU was North Texas's only conference loss. They finished the season 7-1 en route to their very first ever CUSA West title. They also had first half leads on the road against SMU and Iowa, beat 10-win Army, and even though their showing in the bowl game against Troy wasn't exactly the greatest bowl game that's ever been played, Troy was, in fact, one of the best Group of 5 teams this season, winning 11 games and beating LSU. Things are on the up and up in Denton. Now the question is, can they build on the success? Number 8, the Miami Hurricanes. Sure, I think a lot of you could very easily argue that this Miami team deserves to be higher in this ranking, but based on preseason belief, there was a very popular notion that Miami would go on to be in the ACC championship game. They were the preseason pick in the Coastal Division, and I'm pretty sure we all thought that Mark Richt would get this team to a level it has not been in the ACC sooner rather than later, but I highly doubt that many thought in year 2 it would lead to a 10-0 start to the season and a number 2 ranking in the playoff poll. Believe it or not, it took Miami 14 seasons to finally capture a division crown in the ACC, even though I think many of us thought that they would be dominating the division year in and year out when they were first introduced in 2004, but better late than never, I guess. The only problem was a late season upset loss at Pitt, a really disappointing effort in the ACC championship game against Clemson, and a home loss against Wisconsin in the Orange Bowl did dampen the season down the road. But if you would have asked Canes fans before the season if they would have taken a Coastal Division championship, a number 2 ranking in the polls, and an Orange Bowl berth, I'm pretty sure pretty much all of them would have gladly taken it in year 2 under Mark Richt. Number 7, Northwestern Wildcats. When Pat Fitzgerald took over in Evanston in 2006, the Wildcats only had 2 double-digit win seasons in the entire history of the program in 1903 and 1995. Including this season, Fitzgerald as head coach has now had 3, and he was a player on that 1995 season, if you want to count that to his credit a little bit as well. He also has 3 of the 4 Wildcats bowl game victories in history. The loss at Duke was disappointing, as was the loss against number 10 Wisconsin and number 4 Penn State. But they didn't lose after the first weekend in October, which includes a thrilling 3-overtime victory over number 16 Michigan State and humiliating rival Illinois 42-7. I believe they also got the distinction this year of being the very first team in college football history, at least at the FBS level, to win 3 straight overtime games, including a win over the Iowa Hawkeyes, who dismantled Ohio State and kept them out of the playoffs. As long as Pat Fitzgerald is in this role at Northwestern, I expect him to overachieve pretty much every single year. Number 6, the Army Black Knights. 2016 was quite the season in West Point. The Black Knights defeated Navy for the first time since 2001 and won a bowl game for the first time since 2010. But how would they follow that up in 2017? How about a 10-win season and winning the Commander-in-Chief's trophy for the first time since 1996? Senior quarterback Ahmad Bradshaw gained national attention this year with his ability to run, this running offense, gaining 1,746 yards and 14 touchdowns on the ground. The Black Knights ran for over 4,700 yards on the ground and 50 rushing touchdowns this year, all while only throwing 65 passes and only 2 passing touchdowns. This is certainly old school offensive football at its finest. Number 5. The Michigan State Spartans. The 2015 season for Sparty was pretty magical. They won the Big Ten championship and got a berth in the college football playoff, which is why 2016's 3-9 season was so puzzling. Yes, they lost a lot of pieces from the 2015 season, including quarterback Connor Cook, but 3-9? That was not expected. What in the hell was 2017 going to look like? I thought coming into this season that Michigan State was probably the Big Ten's biggest wildcard team, and boy, they did not disappoint. After defeating then number 7 Michigan 14-10, Michigan State started to rise in the top 25, and by the end of October found themselves ranked 16th in the country with a 6-1 overall record. A heartbreaking loss in 3 overtimes to Northwestern was followed up by a really wild, crazy long weather delay victory over then number 7 Penn State 27-24, which was then followed by a 48-3 beatdown at the hands of Ohio State. They ended the season dominating Washington State in the Holiday Bowl 42-17. See? Wildcard team. I don't know exactly what it was that I expected from this Michigan State team in 2017, but it certainly was not a 10-win season and finishing number 2 in the Big Ten East. I really do believe this is probably D'Antonio's best coaching job he's done in East Lansing. Number 4, Fresno State. 2016 was not a good year for the Bulldogs. They went 1-11 overall, including going defeated in Mountain West play, losing 8 of the 8 conference games that they played. After the season, they hired former alum and former Cal head coach Jeff Tedford to take over the reins, and I was pretty curious to see what the 2-time Pac-10 Coach of the Year could do in Fresno. I certainly did not expect 10 wins in his first season. The 66-0 drubbing of Incarnate Word was nice, and losses at number 1 Alabama and at number 6 Washington were expected. But after defeating number 25 Boise State to end the season, the Bulldogs found themselves with a 9-3 overall record and as Mountain West champions. A loss to the Broncos the following week in the Mountain West Championship game did keep them from maybe getting to a bigger bowl game, but a win in the Hawaii Bowl over Houston gave this team their very first 10-win season since 2013. Not bad for Tedford's first year in the program, huh? Number 3, FAU Owls. The Owls created quite the stir in the college football world after the 2016 season when they hired former Tennessee, USC, and Oakland Raiders head coach Lane Kiffin to come down to Boca Raton, and he immediately made a splash both on the field and on social media. After losing the first 2 games of the season against Navy and at number 9 Wisconsin, FAU would only lose one more time this year to finish the season 11-3, their very first double-digit win season as an FBS program. One of the most explosive teams in the country during the 2017 season, they failed to score less than 30 points the rest of the way after week 2. They went undefeated in conference play and cruised to their very first ever CUSA championship. Finally, the Owls locked up Kiffin to a 10-year contract, beat Akron 50-3 in the bowl game, which was played inside their own stadium, by the way, and will arguably be the most buzzed about Group of 5 team this upcoming offseason as they await the game against Oklahoma to kick off the 2018 season. Number 2, the UAB Blazers. In 2014, it was announced that unfortunately the UAB Blazers football program would be cut from the school, cut from the budget. That was a really shocking moment. It's one of the few times I can remember the entire college football community being like, oh, come on, don't do that. Luckily for us, and especially for the people of Birmingham, in 2017, it was announced would be the very first season where UAB football would be coming back. But as such, it would be under Bill Clark, who led the Blazers in 2014 to a 6-6 record, and technically had his second season in 2017, but considering there was a 2-year layoff where no football happened, most of the players either graduated, stopped playing football, or transferred. This was basically the equivalent of an NFL expansion team, and as such, they were picked by the media to finish last in the CUSA West Bowl because, of course, they were. But if it wasn't for a classic game where UAB scored 2 touchdowns in the final 5 minutes against North Texas, only to have the Mean Green kick a field goal with 7 seconds left to win, UAB would have won the division. Finishing 8-5, 6-2 in the conference, this is a much more optimistic team and a program than it was a year ago when they thought they may have to take a couple of years to get to this point. It'll be really interesting to see what this program does going forward, and I think we should all root for them because their mascot is a freaking dragon. Now, I do want to give out some honorable mentions before I give you my number 1 pick. There were a lot to choose from because depending on what you thought going into the season kind of depends on what you thought coming out of the season. Makes sense. Teams like Troy, who went 11-2, beat LSU. I certainly think that they could have very easily been on this list. How many people in here had TCU going to the Big 12 championship game? Probably not too many. What about Memphis? Did a lot of people think Memphis was going to beat UCLA and give us one of the greatest games of the 2017 season against UCF in a 2-overtime thriller in the American Championship? I don't think so. I didn't see South Carolina winning 9 games this year. You could have put them on there, especially once their star player was knocked out after the first game of the season. You could put the Georgia Bulldogs on here, to be completely honest with you. Yes, they had 2 huge senior running backs in Chubb and Michelle, and both of them were chasing history. This team seemed loaded, but did a lot of people pick them to be in the national championship game? I think most people thought Alabama would be the SEC representative in the playoff, which they were, but Georgia won the SEC championship and also got in. Not a lot of people saw that coming. You could even put the Clemson Tigers in here. Yeah, they won the ACC, they were the defending national champions, but they had to replace Deshaun Watson, and I don't think a lot of people preseason thought they would get all the way to the semifinal. Yes, there were a lot of teams that I think I could have put on this list, and when I originally made this list, if I can be completely honest with you, I had UAB number 1. They were coming back from nowhere. They were building from nothing. But the more I thought about it, I just couldn't not put at number 1 the UCF Knights. 2 years ago, this team was 0-12 and about as lifeless a program as you can be. This year, they finished 13-0, won the American Championship, and beat original playoff favorite Auburn in the Peach Bowl. In doing so, they finished the season winning 3 straight games against ranked opponents. Against number 22 South Florida to win the American East title, against number 16 Memphis to win the American title in 2 overtimes, and against number 7 Auburn by a score of 34-27 to win the Peach Bowl and the self-described national championship. I talk more about their national championship, or lack thereof, or if they should even have a case in this video right there if you want to check that out. But in addition to that, they also beat Riley Ferguson and Memphis twice during the season and again in the championship game, and Big Ten member Maryland 38-10. They likely would have had 3 Power 5 wins this season if they could have played and likely, let's be honest, beaten Georgia Tech like they were originally scheduled to, if not for the hurricane that kind of canceled that game. But still, not only to go from 0-12 to 13-0 in 2 years, but from 6-6 last year to 13-0 this year, and make a national brand, really, of themselves, to take over social media conversation the way they did, to maybe give, not the people in power apparently, but a lot of the rest of us, the idea that maybe a group of 5 teams should be in an expanded playoff. That discussion is happening now more than ever, and you can thank UCF for that, and for that reason I had to put them at number 1. Now, of course, the question in Orlando is, what can UCF do without head coach Scott Frost, who's moved on to Nebraska? What will this UCF team be like going forward, and can they sustain the momentum of this season? So that is my top 10. Now it is your turn. Who do you think should be number 1? Is UAB more deserving, or is UCF the clear number 1? And who belongs on this list that I did not put in? Any of those honorable mentions I think easily could have been on this list, and you could make a great case for them. But what other teams? Are there any other teams around the country that should be on here that aren't? Are there any on here that really you weren't that surprised by and they shouldn't be on here at all? Let me know that down below in the comments section. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. You can also click on the circle right there in order to subscribe. Watch my most disappointing teams video over there, or another YouTube video there down below it. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, until next time. Full force on the national scale and have a running back who was in the running for the Doak Walker and even got some Heisman buzz. With the loss of Penny after this year, it's time for the next great Aztec running back. Could that be Juwan Washington next year? Number 9, North Texas Mean Green. In 2015, UNT went 1-11, including a 66-7 loss to FCS team Portland State. I'll repeat, 66-7 Mountain West Championship season with defeating Houston in the Las Vegas Bowl, but obviously that was because of outgoing senior running back Donnell Pumphrey, who ended that game against Houston as the FBS's all-time leading rusher. Right? In steps senior running back Rashad Penny in 2017, and all he did was rush for over 2,200 yards to lead the nation and have 28 total touchdowns in rushing, receiving, and returning. San Diego State started the season 6-0, including this is not the best teams of 2017. This is the teams that I think overachieved, that were the most surprising in a pleasant way to everybody around the country, that went above and beyond what most people thought they probably would at the beginning of the season. So we're kind of comparing preseason expectations to postseason outcomes. Number 10, the San Diego State Aztecs. In 2016, San Diego State won the Mountain West Conference and defeated Houston. In 2016, San Diego State capped off a Hey Lifers, Dustin here, and today I want to take a look at the top 10 teams that I found most surprising in a good way, most overachieving teams of the 2017 season. Now, I already made a video a couple days ago on the most disappointing teams, and you can check that out in the card that just popped up right there in the corner of the screen. It'll also be in the end card at the end of the episode, at the end of this video, and linked down in the description and comment box, so you can go down there and check that out. And remember the wins over Pac-12 teams Arizona State and at home against number 19 Stanford before falling to Fresno State and Boise State, the two teams who won their divisions in the Mountain West this year. They won the last 4 games of the season before falling to 10-win Army, who got their 10th win against San Diego State, in the Armed Forces Bowl in a game that was pretty weird, actually. With the loss of Donnell Pumphrey at the end of last season, I doubt a whole lot of people expected them to not only be ranked, but to defeat teams like Stanford and to be a real